welcome to the show.
Did you celebrate Greek Easter?
I did. I did it the way I usually do, which you get a couple of notifications on Facebook. You say to your other Greek friends, I call them and we wish them Happy Easter. That's it. Did you celebrate it?
No. I don't remember where I was. But did you used to do that game where you tap the blood red eggs together?
Yeah,
and then one person says Christos Anestes, right? Christ is risen. And what's the other person say?
Christ is risen, Christ is dead. Isn't it first dead, then risen?
I thought I would say Christ is risen, and then you say in Greek, indeed he has risen. And that's what, that always seemed like the worst dialogue.
If you were to have written it, how would you have written it? I would say to you, Christ is risen.
When? Or where is he? Instead of, what's he wearing? Instead of, indeed he has risen.
Were you, the older you get, the more connected are you to some of that stuff from your childhood, those sorts of traditions?
No, I mean, I'm not a, we were allowed to make up our mind at 16 whether we wanted to continue going to church or not.
When you were a kid, did you connect for another reason? Connected to impress your father, to find a way to relate to your dad in some way?
Well, like the swim team, I was on the swim team, and then there was a kid on the star of our swim team was named Greg. And then all my dad ever did was talk about Greg. Boy, that Greg. Did you see him? He's a real winner. He should be in the Olympics. And, you know, when you're like 11 years old, you're like, okay, enough about Greg already. And he just talked about him, and it's like he had a crush on him. Like my dad had a boy crush on Greg. And but all my life, my dad would do that. Like he'd pick a boy my age and just talk about him and talk about what a great guy he was, and it just would make me just crazy with jealousy.
At some point, did you feel that you were missing validation, you wanted validation, you were getting validation?
Well, I mean, you never, you know, so now I write, and like I said to my dad, my last book came out, and I said, you know, my book's #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. He said, well, it's not #1 on the Wall Street Journal list. And I said, well, you know, that's not really the list that book people turn to. But you have to, you know, there's no way I'll ever get what it was that he's not a book person, you know, he doesn't understand writing. And I'd rather, I think it'd be worse to have a parent who did understand what it is that you do, you know?
How so?
Well, like when I meet someone who's a doctor, and I say, is your dad a doctor? And if they say yes, I feel sorry for them. Because you don't want your father saying, I did better than that on my MCAT. Isn't that what it's called? Like the test that you take. And I think you should just have a doctor who's like, I can't believe that you can even pick an appendix out. Like when you open somebody out, that you even know which of those things the appendix is. I think it'd be better to have a parent like that who just doesn't understand and just is in awe of what it is that you do. I don't have the awe part, but I have the not understanding part. But if you have one parent who's like into you, that seems good enough to me. You know what I mean? I mean, 2 seems kind of excessive. It really does.
Amy was on the show. Let's play a clip here.
I just think coming from a large family and just us sitting around trying to be really funny and trying to, you know, our timing came from that, you know what I mean? Sure. You know, if you're sitting around the dinner table, you wanted to get in there with a joke or whatever, that's probably where it started.
Same story for you?
Yeah. I mean, I know people who have an only child, or the child will be talking and he'll say, and then the teacher asked Brian about Mexico, and Brian said, what's Mexico? And the teacher said, you didn't read the chapter. And he said, and my mother would have been like, are you crazy? Like, I'm not listening to this crap. Like, pick it up a little. So, because there were so many of us, you had to get right in there. And if someone's paused between a story, you think, oh, I got a better one, whew, and you move right in there.
How many places do you rent out now?
We have, my parents were slumlords, right? And like one time my parents got sued because the bathroom ceiling fell in on somebody, and then his wife showed up at court in a neck brace. It was like, and they got sued. We have 3 different tenants. I have to say, like, as a gay person, I never felt, as a gay man, you know, as much as you might be discriminated against in other ways, in housing, you always go, because that's the number one rule for landlords, rent to the gay man. That's because they're going to say, all they're going to do is make improvements. And all they're going to do is once they're finished with the inside of the house, they're going to move outside and they're going to put in shrubs and stuff. So that's who you, even the most ardent homophobe, if given the choice between two 19-year-old co-eds in a mincing, prancing homosexual with a purse over his arm, they will rent to the homosexual with a purse over his arm.
With or without a Pomeranian.
With or without, even if there's no dogs. And the mincing homosexual wants to bring his Pomeranian, they'll say, okay, we'll make an exception in your case.
You, I'm sure growing up did you experience that kind of stuff you're talking about?
You know, I gotta say, I mean...
Your dad sounds like a tough dude, the way you describe him.
Yeah, but I'm of an age, though, when, you know, at that, like in the 60s in North Carolina, like, there were no books with gay people in them. You know, there were certainly no movies or TV shows, so it was easy to believe that you were the only one on Earth. And, I mean, so that's amazing to me, is that now, I mean, I don't care what little town you live in, you know that certainly you might be the only gay person on your street, you know, or in your town, but at least you know there are other ones out there. And so it's amazing to me that in my lifetime, you know, it's gotten to the point where gay people can marry each other, you know, in some places, and it's just a matter of time, it'll be everywhere. But that's a huge change in my lifetime, huge.
Even in the last 5 years, how rapid the change is happening.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting. See, I wish that gay marriage would be legal everywhere, but that no gay people would act on it. Because, look, nobody wants to go to anybody's wedding. It's just true. It's just true. Nobody wants to get on a plane and go halfway across the country and wear clothes that they don't feel comfortable in and choose between the beef and the chicken, and to sit in a loud room where this horrible band is playing way too loud and they're getting their picture taken. Nobody wants that. So I wish that gay people would fight for the right to marry and that not one of them would ever do it.
Well, my friends, there it is. Let's explore diabetes with owls. David Sedaris, we'll be right back.